If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
O'Reilly! Shop Superstart Premium, Extreme, or Platinum batteries at O'Reilly Auto Parts and get up to a $15 gift card after rebate. O-Reward members can also get a $5 reward with their battery purchase. For power, performance, and reliability, choose Superstart. Only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
You gotta be confident about your Achilles when you
Case
show up.
Thornton,
Yeah, I mean, I got it.
Chris
Tired of
Dowhouse,
hearing about disappointments in fantasy this
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to win. Be great and dominate.
Well, all right. We're back here with Operation Domination. Dan Mater in the flesh. That's right. I'm over my technical issues from yesterday. Shout out to the guys who are holding down the fort as I was stuck on the side of a mountain. Rigmaroles of the day job. Somebody give me a job so I can do this for full time. Anyway, so Operation Domination is live right now on at FF Advice Network on social media. You can catch us on your favorite podcast app. We'll be posting the video up on YouTube on Fridays mornings like we always do. And of course, we have a big list to get through. I want to say it's a little bit smaller than last week, but I'm not sure that's true, especially when we get to the running backs. But it is the middle of the season. So this is when the running backs become a real issue. So to get through all this, we need to introduce our very special guest. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. He's the number one medical expert in all of fantasy sports. The one, the only, Dr. Brian Scott! I love it. Brad guy, how we doing this week, man? How's your fantasy teams doing? No, everyone wants to ask about the injured players, but nobody wants to ask you about your fantasy teams. How are they doing?
I'm right where I always am, middle of the pack. That's kind of just where I live. I've had a few years where I've been deep into the playoffs, and I made it to the finals actually in one league last year, only to lose to the champion, of course, and that was a heartbreaking loss. But I tend to hover in the middle of the pack, and I try to set myself up to make a deep playoff run every year. And so I do tend to go with my own advice when it comes to injured players. I try to steer clear of guys I know are injury prone, or at least have a history of injuries. So I do kind of follow a little bit of my own advice, and that's kind of where I am right now again this year. It's kind of right where I normally am this time of year.
That's a prime time to strike. As long as you stay in the middle of the pack and you're able to set yourself up for I call it a post week 12 run, generally speaking, as long as you're right there in the mix. For some people, maybe it's week 10, but for me, it's a post week 12 run. That's how you win those championships right there. It's not about going undefeated. Nobody goes undefeated, guys. It doesn't happen. It's not a thing. And I don't care if you're 2-4 or 1-5. You still have a shot if you keep playing it out right now. But with all that, let's give the guys the edge by getting to these. All right. So with all that, so this was kind of weird. All right. I didn't think we were talking about any quarterbacks, really. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not worth noting about, and he's always banged up anyway, so who cares? But there was one guy, now he's practicing full 2 days in a row, which is the odd thing here, but Drake Maye had to go for an MRI on his knee yesterday, across the pond. So what do you got there?
Yeah, not sure what that was all about, but according to the offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt, quote, not concerned. So it sounds like this is not going to affect his availability this weekend. Like you said, he practiced in full today and yesterday. It doesn't seem like there's any major issues there as far as what the injury was or showed on the MRI. So that's good news. If it was anything of any significance, it would have lit up on the MRI and they would have been much more cautious, I'm sure.
Yeah, that is good news. Sounds like he's going to be good to go. Look, he's somebody he's not my top 12 guys, but he is on that borderline. He's a high-end QB2 with a great match against Jacksonville. In fact, there's one league, and I wanted to talk about this on yesterday's show. I didn't really get the chance to do so, but there's one league I'm in where I'm benching Kyler Murray in favor of Drake Maye this particular week with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Murray being one of my bust candidates of the week. I got him all the way down to QB7. So Drake Maye, there's somebody I have a lot of interest in this week. Now, the knee thing bugs me because we do like his rushing floor that he's going to bring to the table, but he's practicing in full. So maybe it's just not that bad. All right, so let's get into the running backs because we got a laundry list. But the first guy I wanted to talk about, we did talk about a little bit last week, but sounds like it's going to be his first official game back. So I wanted you to talk about Nick Chubb and what a medical marvel this guy is.
I can't even get into it because it's so amazing that he's been able to come back from 2 major multi-ligament knee injuries and surgical reconstructions of the same knee within an 8-year time span too, which is even crazier that so much time has elapsed and he's still able to make a return to an NFL team after a gruesome injury last year. It's just amazing. Again, there are outliers in every kind of facet of life in statistics, and Nick Chubb is an outlier for sure. He has basically broken down any of the myths or barriers that and had kind of skewed all of the results when it comes to timelines for returning from these type of injuries. I've gotten nothing but good things to say because it's amazing. He's entered the 21-day practice window on October 2nd. So if he doesn't make his return this week, he's only got 6 more days, and then that's it. Either he hangs it up for the season and goes back on IR, or they activate him. So it sounds like he's ready to go, which is amazing. And he's been working his way and ramping his way up through practice in the last 2 weeks here. So we'll have to see how effective he is when he gets back on the field. I do expect him to have, lost a little bit of a step or 2 or 3, given the history there. But as we've seen before with him, he comes back and the guy looks like he never missed a beat, which is amazing.
Yeah, I can't really say anything else about the guy. I mean, he's been absolutely phenomenal the way he's come back. I mean, this has been going on since college with Nick Chubb, and then he finds a way to come back just as good as he ever was. So, I'm not going to doubt the guy. They're already talking about what kind of workload he's going to have.
The unfortunate part is it has put a shelf life on him, and there's just no way around that. These injuries will at some point take a significant toll and limit him severely. It's just a matter of when that is and how long it'll take before he can't perform at such a high level anymore. And it will be sooner than it is later, unfortunately, given that he's a young guy still. And if he hadn't had these injuries, he'd probably have many more years left in the league. But, just given the nature of the injuries themselves and what we know the long-term consequences are of them, his days are numbered in the NFL. But if he can maximize the remaining time he has, then kudos to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see what he looks like. Look, Nick Chubb is nothing but a dire flex play his first week back. We have no idea what his workload is going to be. We can make the argument with Jerome Ford out, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Yes, he has a pathway where maybe get more touches coming out of the gate than he would have, but you still got to have Pure Strong, still got Donta Foreman who's going to get worked in, and we're still talking about the freaking Cleveland Browns at the end of the day. Like, just on a side note real quick, after they traded Amari Cooper, I'm not even 100% sure why they're trying to bring back Nick Chubb, because to me, you won't bench Deshaun Watson, you trade away Amari Cooper, it's really clear to everybody else around that you're trying to tank. That's the only explanation going on right now. So I don't know why you do it, but it's probably more of a Nick Chubb wanting to prove that he can get back kind of thing than anything else. Let's go into another running back who's big on our boards, who's been at top 10 play ever since he's stumbled on this year, and that's been Jordan Mason, dealing with an AC sprain. He's been limited the last 2 days, but what do you think his chances are of playing, and how effective will he be?
Yeah, so limited yesterday and today, and wearing a non-contact jersey, by the way, which spells a problem if you're looking to get back into full competition this weekend. I have a feeling that if we do see him, it might be in a limited role, maybe just for blocking scheme purposes, because if he's not 100%, and again, you can play with the mild AC joint sprain, which is what they said it was, but at some point, you're going to have to take a hit on that shoulder, and all the padding in the world sometimes is not enough to prevent that from hurting quite a bit and getting re-aggravated. So we could see him in a limited role compared to what he has been filling in for McCaffrey. So something to keep an eye on. He's probably going to come in with a questionable tag, is my guess. We'll probably see him limited again tomorrow, or even full, but tomorrow's Friday. They don't do much anyway on Friday, so not sure how much worth that's going to be. His status on the injury report on Friday. My guess is, like I said, a limited role, but possibly suiting up in some capacity.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is good news that he'll be active. If you have Jordan Mason, you have to play him. I don't love the shoulder injury. I don't love the fact that he's going up against the number one, defense against the running backs this season in Kansas City at the moment either. But they need Jordan. This is a big game. This is a bigger game for San Francisco than it is for Kansas City. So I would not be surprised, as long as he can go, and maybe they can numb him up, whatever the case may be. You're gonna have to still play. I don't think you're gonna have a better option, let's say, than Jordan Mason in your lineups. Let's talk about another guy who we were all kind of pins and needles. Is he gonna play? Is he not gonna play? Aaron Jones. This is another kind of weird situation. So he starts off with a hip injury, and then this week they corrected it. It's like, well, it's actually a hamstring injury. Which is it? What to expect, Brian? That's what I need to know.
I have no idea. When we were talking about it originally, we thought maybe it was like a hip pointer or maybe a hip flexor strain, or then I think they might have even mentioned an oblique at one point. I don't know. But now they're saying hamstring. Listen, he missed practice yesterday. He returned today. Unclear as to how much of a participant he was, however, because apparently
he was listed as limited.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But it doesn't bode well for this weekend if it in fact is a hamstring injury, as we've talked about many times on this show. Hamstring injuries are one of those things until you can push it full. You really don't know how recovered you are, and it's one of those things that can easily be re-aggravated. And I did a big article, not to plug myself, but we did a big, our normal blog this week, Inside the Medical Tent, and we cover this topic, concussions and hamstrings, and why they're so unpredictable when trying to figure out what you could expect from a player as far as their return and their contribution and timeline, how long it takes and why it's so unpredictable. So I don't want to get into it too much here because we don't have time, but you don't know what you got with a hamstring injury until you can test it out in full. And if he's limited in one day this week and possibly tomorrow, I don't think it's enough time for him to be ready.
Well, they're coming off the bye. This is what was so weird about it, is that they worked him out on Monday, which I thought was strange. If you actually had a hamstring injury, they worked him out on Monday, and they seem, rather positive about it, quite frankly. And then he didn't practice on Wednesday, which was weird if he was positive about it on Monday.
It goes back to what I'm saying. Like, you don't know what you got until you test it out. And, he might have pushed it pretty hard on Monday saying, hey, I feel pretty good. Let's see what we've got here. And let's see, if this is truly something I can play with the rest of the week here. And then he probably realized pretty quickly, this isn't as good as I thought it was.
But he was still able to come back on Thursday. So Friday's going to be the telltale as far as what chances he has to suit up. Now, if he does go, it's kind of similar to the Jordan Mason situation where, no, I don't like that he's going in, not 100%, especially against a defense. Detroit, Kansas City's number one, Detroit's number two against the running backs in fantasy points right now. But again, kind of like Jordan Mason, I don't know who you have. It's going to be better than Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a top 5 running back so far this season when he's played. Plain and simple. He's been breaking tackles left and right. He's been a top 5 guy the whole way. So I would definitely have him in my lineup, but just tamper your expectations. If you have to go another direction, then go ahead and do that. As I have a little issue here going on with my microphone. That's a little bit better. Okay, so Travis Etienne, he had a hamstring. So, Brian, before we get, I want to talk about this real quick. Okay. I'm tired of coaches telling me players are week to week. Stop telling me they're week to week. Because it's one or two things. Either they're week to week and they're heading on the IR, or they're week to week and they come back and practice on a Wednesday. Travis Etienne's the latter, of course. He came back and practiced on a Wednesday after having a hamstring issue. I don't know. What do you got on this?
So, let's not forget, too, he was dealing with a shoulder issue prior to this and had been limited in practice with that injury, and then all of a sudden played with it, and then boom, now he's got a hamstring injury. And so you really don't know what to make of this. Is this a guy who maybe just is like, hey, listen, I'm not going to push it in practice, and he's kind of telling the coaching staff and the training staff, like, listen, I know my body. This is what I feel I could do. And so he's a limited participant purely because he is trying to mitigate his own injury kind of to some degree here by not pushing it too fast or too hard too soon. I don't know. Could he be a guy that maybe they just are treating with a little bit of kid gloves, compared to some of the other guys? It's hard to say. Everybody on these teams does have, to some degree, an individualized treatment program. Not everybody kind of follows the same timelines. A lot of it has to do with not only the physical makeup of each player, but the mental makeup as well. So that always plays into it. Could that be what's going on here? Hard to say. But I agree with you. The week-to-week thing is annoying. Welcome to my world, Dan. That's why I usually don't put much stock in what the coaches say during these press conferences. You really have to just listen to the reporters, especially the beat reporters, and hear about what they report about what the players were actually doing at practice time, especially during the media portion. Because as we get through this list here, some of these guys were not even visible during the media portion of practice, and that's a telltale sign that they're probably getting treatment, and they're not really ready to do anything just yet, even if they were limited or listed as limited. So there's always these little key clues that are kind of and nuggets out there if you know what to look for. But yeah, the coaches need to start zipping their lip and let the medical team do the discussions, or just let the injury report speak for itself.
Yeah, the problem with that is, like in the case of Travis Etienne, the only update you're getting before your waiver wires go live on Tuesday is the one from the coach. And you're taking a week to week. Now, in years past, it was always, well, you go week to week, then you're definitely gonna be out the following week. Like, it was a given you're gonna be out the following week. And now all of a sudden we have no idea. So you're trying to get the edge. We talk about this all the time. This show is about getting the edge.
This is why you
That's an edge.
Subscribe and tune into the Injured List podcast, because this is what we're here for. And this is what we do, right? I mean, week to week tells me.
No, I totally agree.
That week to week tells me that this is something that it's probably more of a subjective issue, where the team doesn't feel it's probably very serious. However, subjectively, the athlete's probably telling them, "Hey, I feel pretty sore today after doing this and that X, Y, and Z yesterday," or something to that effect. And so the team is kind of forced to say, "All right, well, we're gonna just address this each week. We'll throw him in for some limited sessions and see how he does." But there can be a lot of discrepancy between what the medical team objectively sees in these injured athletes and what the athlete themselves subjectively feels. And oftentimes with the team staff and the athletes themselves, there could be a little bit of a disconnect there. And so sometimes the week-to-week thing is not that they're trying to throw us off. It's just that they purely don't know either. And it's just one of those things. We got to see how he feels until, leading up into game day. And if he tells us he's ready to go and we agree, then he's out there. And so sometimes the teams are kind of at the mercy of what the players feel and how they're responding.
Yeah. I have a real easy fix for that. Just call him day to day. Just call him day to. Don't call him week to week. Just call him day to day. That's the more accurate description from what you're telling me. At least then honest, I know that there's a chance.
And Dan, you're exactly right. And that's the way everybody should look at these things, is a day to day. What do they do each day of practice? How are they listed on the injury reports? And what injury are they dealing with? The week to week thing doesn't really fly unless you're talking about a guy coming off IR, entering that 3-week, 21-day window. A guy like Chubb, that truly is week to week. But as you can see with a guy like Chubb, obviously he's kind of morphed into that day to day. But yeah, you're exactly right. It's a better way to look at it, the day to day, especially with an acute injury in the middle of the season where guys are limited in practice, but they're not quite out, not on IR. Day to day is always a better way to take it.
Yeah, so I gotta get off my rant, but they're screwing up my waiver wire. I just wanted to get that out there. Okay, so Jonathan Taylor, he's still dealing with the ankle issue. We still have not seen him at all. So kudos to you because you're the one who called this a high ankle sprain. It was going to probably be 4 weeks before we see him. A little annoying that they didn't go ahead and put him on IR. Just tell us that, but neither here nor there.
This is concerning because he's had a history of this, and he had offseason surgery, not last year, I think it was the year before, to address, I think, this issue, which developed into chronic ankle instability. So certainly concerning, but he was concerned too, it sounds like, from some of the media reports where he was saying he didn't think it was as bad as it is, and it turns out it's a little more serious than he thought, and that's why he has to step back on the field. Yeah, so it's concerning, but now this truly might be a week-to-week thing. Go figure. Because, with the history there, the fact it's a high ankle sprain, these take a long time to get better. He's not on IR. Maybe he could have gone on IR, but they don't want to do it. So this is going to be when we see him return to the practice field, then you can start looking at it day to day. Until then, it looks like it's going to be a week-to-week thing.
Yeah, hopefully that's sooner rather than later. And then they signed Savon Ahmed off the practice squad here because Trey Sermon got a little bit banged up, though it sounded like he practiced today. The guy I want to take a flyer on DFS, and I actually have in a few lineups, is Tyler Goodson. I mean, this is a good matchup here for the Colts coming up this upcoming week. And Goodson looked like he had already overtaken Trey Sermon, at least on early downs. Not in the goal line situation, but Goodson, a better pass catcher, has a little more pop to him. I don't get carried away on Tyler Goodson, okay, but in a matchup with Miami Dolphins where everyone's been able to run, I think he's got some interesting upside as a RB3 flex play this particular week. All right, so this guy, Rhamondre Stevenson, just answer me this. Are we about to have the same situation we did last year where we're waiting for him to come back, and we're like, oh, never mind, he's going to go in season-ending IR, and we just strung you guys along for 5 weeks for no reason?
Dan, it's starting to look like that, isn't it? I mean, it's starting to kind of have that feel to it. This is almost reminiscent of a few years prior to when Cam Newton was dealing with a Liz Frank injury to his foot and was limited in practice, missed a game or two here and there, was trying to play through it, and then boom, all of a sudden have a season-ending surgery. Hopefully that's not the case with Rhamondre, but you always have to be cognizant of that possibility, given the fact that we're not really getting much information about the exact injury in the foot. And then, here he is 5 days straight of no practice. Not a good sign.
Yeah, it's not. I'm a little bit worried about it. And I wouldn't care so much if Antonio Gibson was any good. I kid a little, but look, Antonio Gibson right now, he's a high-end RB3 play. It's a much better matchup here against Jacksonville than what they had going on last week. It should be a back-and-forth game script a little bit here. The problem was that he kind of stepped in. He took the Rhamondre role, but he didn't get the Rhamondre role plus like you would have thought he would have. No, for some reason, the Patriots had to sprinkle in JaMychal Hasty, a guy who I just he's like whack-a-mole. He just pops up whenever I'm ready for a handcuff to take off, and he just steals all my routes and targets and stuff like that. And I still don't get it, but that's what the Patriots did, and you have to expect they're going to do something similar. Now, like I said, a better matchup here. I think Antonio Gibson is a high-end RB3, but that's about it. He doesn't have the same upside as Rhamondre Stevenson. Okay, so next off of that, we might have some good news for you on the Brian Robinson front.
Well, unless you got something new, I heard he was limited again in practice today. Is that correct? Is that what you heard too?
I thought I saw full. I could be mistaken. I thought I saw full for Brian Robinson, but what I will say is this: the team seems pretty confident he's going to play this Sunday.
Yeah, well, the only caveat to that is they felt the same way last week, and then all of a sudden at the last minute he was the no-go, and it sounds like he's been dealing with this for quite some time, for the last several weeks, but been playing through it. The team was using him more in a short yardage goal line kind of situation as a result, which was working great for fantasy football owners. But as far as the longevity of the season, it seems to not be going well because fast forward to last weekend, he ended up sitting out. Now, I thought he was limited again in practice today, and that wouldn't be surprising given the way the last few weeks have kind of unfolded here. But if he is back in full, I'm highly encouraged by what they're saying, and I'm expecting him to play. But at the same time, if this is a chronic issue that he's trying to just push through, at some point he might hit a wall here and might end up missing some time. Depending on when their bye is, and I don't know the answer to this question, but depending on when their bye is, could factor into their decision-making going forward if what he's dealing with is a chronic issue.
Yeah, well, two things on this. So one, you're correct. He was limited today. Their bye is not till week 14. So they got to waste weight. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so it might be some time before he gets some rest unless they just keep him out. So we'll keep an eye on Brian Robinson. Rachaad White. Now, I don't know if he's even going to have a job when he comes back, but, for this purposes, Rachaad White here still dealing with a foot issue. What do you got on him?
Not much. I just thought he returned to practice, and it sounds like they're anticipating him being available for Week 7 matchup here.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that. Like, they already came out and said and it's the Monday Night Football game, so we're going to have a report all the way up until Saturday with this one. But they're already talking about they're going to ride the hot hand. Whoever the hot hand is between Bucky Irving, Rachaad White, and Sean Tucker. And look, as far as Rachaad White goes, if you're a Rachaad White owner, I'm sorry for you. It's full panic mode. I mean, we kind of saw the writing on the wall. Like, we knew he wasn't that good. We didn't know that Bucky Irving was going to take the role that he did as early with Rachaad White on the field. And then all of a sudden he leaves. Bucky Irving had a great day, but then Sean Tucker just went ape crap all over everybody in that game. Now, I want to say this because I've been listening all week to everyone talk up Sean Tucker and just drool over themselves and fall in love. I want to point something out, okay? Most of his work came in the fourth quarter. And then the second thing here is that, did you see the holes? Did you actually watch that game? Sean Tucker, I could have drove a dump truck to the lanes that he was getting in that game. Like, he wasn't being touched until 8 yards down the line of scrimmage in a lot of his touches throughout that game. The Saints defense gave up completely in the second half when they realized we're just getting blown out and they just weren't moving the ball and they were on the field the entirety of the time. So I want to temper the Sean Tucker love a little bit here, okay? Like, yes, he's a little bit of a do-it-all back, but there's a reason why it's taken him over a year to actually getting significant snaps. Maybe he gets the opportunity, maybe he doesn't. Like, Bucky Irving's the guy I like the most, but I don't really love any of them against the Baltimore Ravens, who have been super stingy against running backs all year and haven't been able to run on. They're the best team in rushing yards per play this season so far. So it's not a team you can run on. So I don't love it for any of them. If I had to choose one, it'd be Bucky Irving, but none of them are my top 24 this week coming up. So just keep that in mind. All right. So moving on. Always got to talk about your Giants. Devin Singletary, groin issue. What's going on with him?
Yeah, limited in practice again today. And with Tracy playing pretty well, filling in for him, I'm not so sure we're going to see him rush back this week. I think we might see him out again with a groin injury at the running back position. That can take some time. Not quite as terrible as a hamstring injury. Not quite as bad as if you were a hockey player. But I don't see him being ready until he gets at least a full practice session in, and Friday is not probably going to be it. So I think we might see another week with him on the bench. And let's not forget, I got my finger on the pulse of the Giants here. I'm a lifelong fan. I'm from New York. I just know how this is going to play out, as do a lot of other Giant fans when you look at the entire season, Dan. It's not just, the injuries and stuff. I just, in my gut, I know how it's going to go. And when you see that their all-pro left tackle, Andrew Thomas, just went down with the Liz Franks ending surgery, that's heartbreaking, and that is just another piece of the puzzle to fall. And so it's not good.
Yeah, when he was fine, playing really well too. On top of it, yeah, it was rough. Look, this is what I say to the all Giants fans who are down on themselves. At least you're not the Jets, okay? you have that. You always have that going for you. You're not the Jets. That always should make you feel better as a Giants fan.
And we just everything's going on. We just need to hear it from somebody to lift us up. And now I feel so much better.
Yeah, exactly. See, there you go. You're welcome. All right, so Tajae Spears, he's dealing with a hamstring. It's not looking good for him.
Yeah, well, he missed practice yesterday. I'm not even sure if he was in there today. But again, he talks about hamstrings. Take some time. Can't push it too much too soon. This could be a while. Yeah,
so Tony Pollard, this is big because of Tony Pollard, right? There's been a major workload for him now in place because Tajae Spears is getting about a third of the touches. So you take that away. Look, Julius Chestnut is not going to be a factor. All right, let's just put it wasn't a factor when Tajae Spears went out either. And the whole offense of Tennessee, because Will Levis is so bad, is centered around Tony Pollard, who's got a great matchup this week against Buffalo. So Pollard is a must-play for me this week, and I expect a big ceiling out of him. We already talked about Jerome Ford. I do want to mention here Jonathan Brooks because his practice window just opened up.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And he was a guy that I was very high on for their draft pick because the timing wasn't going to be great for this year. You know, we knew he wasn't going to be ready at the beginning of the season, but by all reports, his ACL injury was a very straightforward one, which means his recovery should have been very straightforward as well. So he's entering that practice window. I think he's about 10 months now, removed from the ACL reconstruction, which is about right, kind of right where you want to be. My advice to the Panthers, and I think they can take advice from anybody right now because they're freaking terrible, is bring him along slow. You know, let this be a feeling out period of getting learning the ropes of being a professional athlete on the road, you know, with all the responsibilities that come along with it at home, and prepare this guy to be your franchise running back next year because the dude has a huge upside, and the injury unfortunately caused his draft stock to fall a little bit. But assuming he's able to make a complete recovery, which there's no reason to think he hasn't, this could be a potential running back for the future for them.
Yeah, and I mean, I am one of those people who I play in the leagues with IR spots. I stash Jonathan Brooks away hoping for a second half run. Unless Chuba Hubbard gets an injury, I don't think that's going to happen this season because Hubbard's just been too good. He's an RB1. Chuba Hubbard. I mean, of all the crazy things that are going on in Carolina, Chuba Hubbard's an RB1. Diontae Johnson's a wide receiver one. Thank you, Andy Dalton. I know there's some concern out there that if the Panthers keep losing games, they might go back to Bryce Young. I'm here to tell you guys it's not going to happen. Okay. They didn't bench Bryce Young because they thought Andy Dalton was going to win them a bunch of games and get him to the playoffs. That's not why. That's not why they benched Bryce Young. They benched Bryce Young because Andy Dalton gives them a shot for all the other players to actually get numbers. And I don't think enough people talk about this. Look, there are other players here on the field who need to get paid, who need to get new contracts. Diontae Johnson being a big one of them. And they can't do that if they don't get stats. So Andy Dalton comes in there to make sure that, one, the locker room didn't hit the total eject button on the entire organization within a couple of weeks because that's the area they were trending towards. We kept playing Bryce Young. But two, it's so other guys can actually have a chance to produce. Even if it's not wins, you have a duty to these guys to actually let them produce so they can make their money, especially when you're a crappy organization anyway. And look, getting Bryce Young in there, it's not going to help you tank anymore. You're not winning games to Andy Dalton anyway. Just keep him in there so other people can produce. Yeah. I don't think they're going to go back to Bryce Young. I don't think people think about that from that standpoint enough. All right. We got to get the wide receivers. Marvin Harrison, concussion. He's been limited the last couple of days. So in your experience, when you have a concussion issue, you've been limited 2 days, what do you think the odds are of him suiting up on Sunday?
Well, I mean, there's still time. You know, he can still do stuff on Friday and get cleared in time under the concussion protocol guidelines and stuff before Sunday. So this is definitely a day-to-day thing. Concussions can sometimes take a quick turn for the positive, and so he might have gotten through today's and yesterday's practices feeling good. And if he's able to do a little more tomorrow, that might be the thing that gets him over the hump. So something to keep an eye on. I wouldn't just rule him out yet. Definitely got to see what he does tomorrow.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big thing there. Hopefully he's gonna be okay to go. But I will say the trend has been heavily that players who have a concussion typically do not play the following week. And we've seen that trend over the last couple of years, but especially this season. I don't think any players come back the following week so far this season for concussion. Well, he's not off the top of my head anyway. But one guy who might be coming back, Malik Nabers.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe if Marvin Harrison picks up some Travis Scott concert tickets, maybe that'll help speed along his recovery because it seems to have worked well for Malik Nabers. And he practiced in full today, and he should be cleared this Sunday, which is great news for the Giants. They definitely could use his services.
Yeah, big spot here. Great matchup. I have Malik Nabers in my top 5 wide receivers with the way he has looked so far this season. Cooper Kupp. It's sounding promising for Cooper Kupp. Are you on board with that?
Sure, Dan. If you are, I'm right there with you. But Cooper Kupp has been spoken about way too much coming out of my mouth the last couple of years. So anything with him, take with a grain of salt. It's pretty much 50-50, split right down the middle. Anytime he carries a questionable tag, you never really know.
Yeah, that's fair. He's been limited all through the week. All the reports from the beat writers are he's trending in the right direction. I need him back in a big way this week. All right. So anyway, Diontae Johnson, he's been dealing with an ankle issue. Now, he has not practiced the last 2 days.
Not good. That usually means that there's probably some swelling involved, and he's probably working on getting that down and dealing with pain as well. So I don't expect that he'll be ready in a short turnaround here on Friday. If he is, he's going to be probably heavily taped and braced, which is going to really restrict his ability to be as agile on his receiver position. That's huge. So if he does play, he might not be as productive, and certainly might have to be somebody you might want to, not start at least, or consider having as a flex if you think he's not going to get the full set of reps.
Well, I hope they numb him up or something. Friday's going to be a big practice report. But, we have a smash spot here. They're playing in Washington. Diontae Johnson looks like a top 10 wide receiver heading into this week. And a nice little steal, by the way, on DraftKings, where he's only sitting at $6,000. So let's hope Diontae Johnson's going to be good to go. But that is going to be a big thing we have to watch. Now, I will say this about Diontae, and Brian, you could attest to this, I'm sure, is that we've seen him go 2 days, open up a week of practice, not practice at all, come back in limited fashion on Friday and go out there and ball on Sunday. This is somebody who's had a history of being able to do that. So fingers crossed it's going to be the case again. Jakobi Meyers also kind of in the same situation. Ankle injury, didn't practice the last 2 days. Anything on him?
Not much more on him. But, ankles are a little bit different, a joint compared to some of the other body parts we've talked about here. So, you can theoretically with a mild ankle sprain, if there's not too much swelling, your pain's not bad, you don't have any clinical instability in the ankle, there's no reason to think that guys can't come back and play through it. So, like you mentioned with Diontae Johnson, this could be something where if Meyers is able to get a practice session in this week, he might be listed questionable, but could see some limited time on the field.
For those of you who, after the Devontae Adams deal, thought to yourself, Jakobi Meyers, number one receiver in Raiders. Look, he's a borderline bye-week desperate fill, in my opinion. The number one wide receiver on the Raiders is Brock Bowers. And then there's a large drop, and then there's maybe Jakobi Meyers after that. That's the deal right now. Bowers is going to get double-digit targets, 9 to 12 targets a game, to the moon. Bowers to the moon. If he could actually score touchdowns, he'd be tight end one overall. But instead, he's going to be tight end 2 or 3 because, the Raiders can't score touchdowns, so they can't really get him set up for that. But the volume's going to be crazy. Aiden O'Connell, going back to last year, does not target Jakobi Meyers, whether Devontae Adams is on the field or not. We've already seen that. I don't know if they'd go back to Gardner Minshew. I wouldn't put it past Antonio Pierce. I don't know what the point would be either. So, you have to deal with that. Jakobi Meyers is a desperate PPR only spot flex play. That is it. The only person I care about on this team from fantasy perspective is Bowers. Everything else I want nothing to do with. All right. So we got Dontayvion Wicks, another friggin', so this one pissed me off too. It was another friggin' week-to-week guy. And all of a sudden he's practicing on Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah. Got Watson everywhere I could. Yeah, I do play in leagues where Watson actually became available because everybody was so pissed off, and he another guy who's supposed to be out for 4 weeks and came back in 2. But what do you got on Dontayvion?
It doesn't sound like it's anything serious. I think we will probably see him this weekend, even though they're saying week to week. I'm not exactly sure what the injury is. Could be an AC joint sprain as well. Haven't seen much about the details of that injury, but the fact that he's in a limited participant reminds me kind of what's who did we talk about earlier? Jordan Mason. So you might see something similar, maybe some reduced workload, but it's trending in the right direction. Something to keep an eye on heading into the weekend.
All right, last but not least, I know we got a couple tangents today, so we're going a little bit long, but last but not least, Dallas Goedert hamstring issue. Don't think it's looking great for him.
Yeah, well, tight ends historically aren't quite as athletic as the receivers, but they also don't quite need to be as agile and fast either. So while, you worry about them having a hamstring injury, not necessarily to the same degree as a receiver position, assuming it's nothing serious, we should see him work his way back somewhat quickly. I would expect a tight end to be back from this injury faster than a wide receiver because of the responsibilities and tasks they have to do on the field. But again, no matter what position it is, until you test that out, you're really not going to know what you got. So if he's not able to get back on the practice field, at least in a limited fashion, I think it might be premature to pencil him in as a starter.
Here's what's crazy. This is how bad the tight end position is, by the way. Dallas Goedert is tight end 7, and he's only had one good game. Like, that's what we're dealing with here. It's so rough. And in Goddard's case too, just seems like a yearly injury situation going on with him. But that's what we're looking at right now. Grant Calcutta would come in for him. Other than desperate dynasty leagues, I don't know how you're starting him with any confidence, especially with AJ Brown, Devonta Smith looking good last week. So that's gonna wrap it up for the injuries. Brian, as always, thanks for coming on to the show, guys. Make sure you're checking out Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app, and look us or always live at 8 p.m. on social media at FF Advice Network, and we'll go drop the video on YouTube on Friday mornings. But Brian, what do you got coming up? What do you need people to check out?
Oh, well, I just released an awesome episode of my podcast last week with an awesome former BMX professional by the name of Josh Perry. Guy has an amazing story. He survived multiple brain tumors, performed at a high level after that. So definitely worth checking that out. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier in the podcast here about Inside the Medical Tent, the blog I do with Andrew LeDuc from That Sports Podcast Network. Different vibe this week. We did a discussion about why it's so difficult to predict guys coming back from concussions and hamstring injuries. So if you want to dive a little bit more into the nitty-gritty about how to go about doing that, because you and I did cover a little bit of it today, just check out the blog Inside the Medical Tent at www.theinjuredlist.com. And as always, just watch my Facebook, Instagram, or X pages for daily updates and news as it breaks.
Excellent. Brian, as always, thanks for coming on, man. Everyone have good luck this weekend. I hope your players stay safe and unharmed, and you guys all win, because that's what we're all about at Operation Domination. Hey there, I want to thank you for watching Operation Domination today. And if you're enjoying the show, there are some ways you can help support us. You can go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination and leave us a 5-star review. And you can do this on any podcast platform or on our YouTube page when you go to @FF Advice Network. This completely helps out the show be able to grow, and also leave us comments to let us know how we can curtail the show to you, because you are the most important member of the show. So again, go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination to leave a 5-star review and leave a comment wherever you listen or watch the show, and we'll help better serve you.